Very much.
8 o'clock.
Okay, here we are. Welcome, everybody. Namaste. Akasha here, Nan Akasha from nanakasha.com. I'm super excited to come to you today because happy Mother's Day if you're in the Philippines or the US or many other places. And we are going to have a super exciting show tonight. So, hi, Neil. We've
Hey,
got a
Nan, good to be
guest.
here with you.
Yeah, so we've got a guest, and I'm going to share my slides so I can tell you properly his credentials and his life. And what we're going to do is go ahead and find, so you know where to find him. And if you're watching down below, if it's not there now, we'll make sure to have a link over to so you can find Neil. So today we are going to be talking about shadow work and sacred polarity. So it's something that we were talking about the other day. We both have a lot of passion about. I know a lot of you are doing shadow work. I know my students and my mastermind clients are so deep in the shadow work right now with everything we've been through the last few months. So if you have anything, that all that means is that you are going through all the things you've hidden from yourself so you can come out the other side, because the solution is always in the problem, right? So this is powerful times that we're in. All right, so Neil is the founder of Portal to Ascension, and you can see at the bottom there, portaltoascension.org is where you can find him. And he's a conscious event production company created in 2008 that hosts a wide variety of presenters on a variety of topics, such as the origins of humanity, existence of extraterrestrial life, exposing hidden truths, my favorite, exploring the nature of reality. He travels the world facilitating gatherings and filming documentaries that are intended to empower the individual and to reclaim your sovereignty. So I know you like that, and awaken to your full potential. Neil also operates an online platform that creates and facilitates about 90 conferences and workshops a year. So it's just so wonderful when you do this kind of work, right? And then you step into your purpose and it takes you down a wild path until you realize, oh, this is my path. And the amazing things that you're doing, connecting people with not just information, but experiences, I think. So at this point, Portal to Ascension has worked with over 1,500 researchers, spiritualists, scientists, and consciousness explorers, and more. Neil is a philosopher, historian, researcher, and spoken word artist. He presents his research on the ancient wisdom and future science of sound, vibration, and frequency, as well as in-depth explorations, yay, into ancient civilizations, archaeological discoveries, space anomalies, shedding light on hidden esoteric wisdom, and exploring ways in which we can create unity and peace on earth. Yay! So I did copy a little bit about what I put into the email to everybody today, and I thought we'd just look at a little bit. So we both have a passion for the shadow work and the sacred serpent. We started talking about that concept and balancing the polarities of sacred masculine and sacred feminine in ourselves and in our planet and in our realities. So we're going to be looking at the individual and collective shadow work in humanity, how this connects to the sacred serpent that was been revered through time as a guide of our spirit and our ability to shed the past and be reborn, which is such a good archetype almost every day now. And is the darkness something to be judged or part of ourselves that we need to reconcile with? These are really powerful questions. You might want to write them down and play with them yourself. And we're going to dive into sacred polarity. So what is the divine feminine and masculine, and how this transcends gender to represent archetypes and specific personality traits, innate abilities, and how it relates to shadow work. So I don't know about you, but I think this sounds pretty awesome. So welcome, Neil. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nan. I'm really excited for this conversation. We've spoke a couple times over the last month about what we want to speak about here, and even though like history and UFOs, ETs is my like, I love that subject so much. Whenever like that question's asked to me now, it just goes straight to like the inner work and the self empowerment conversation, because I'm feeling like the need for myself. I'm just a microcosm of the macro. It's
Yeah.
like happening on a collective level. There's a lot of stuff that we're working through right now.
Yeah, definitely. And, I don't know about you. I'm sure you've been seeing it for a long time. I've been doing this work for like 38 years. And, lots of changes in that amount of time. And we used to be walking around in the dark. Our consciousness was very low and slow. There was no internet. It was very hard to find people. I checked books out of libraries. I used to do healing via snail mail, no lie. Someone would write me a letter and send me some hair from somewhere, and it would get here, and I'd do the healing, and I'd write it up, and I'd send it back, and nobody knew when anything was happening, right? So it's a really accelerated time, and we can feel that acceleration. So what happens when you say, oh, I want something new, or I want something different? You can't stay the same. Right. And now we've got all of these eclipses and, this auroras that have happened in the last couple of days. This is like a next level, our frequency being high enough to perceive these frequencies, and the download, the accelerated geomagnetic storm coming from the solar flares. This is all communication, right? So I think that we're shedding faster and faster and faster, and it feels like we're in a nonstop spiral. And yet, like we started talking about, if you go into, it's sort of like going into the center of the storm, there's this power. Yeah. So tell us about what's been happening to you and why this is passionate part of your heart.
Yes. So a couple of things I want to start with is just, first of all, when you look at the world, a lot of people feel that there's a lot of chaos, and I do a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of content, and there's some people in there that say and leave comments on, well, how are we shifting? Are we going to this world when you can see the state of the world right now, and all the craziness, and all the chaos, and all the wars and everything? And there's a couple things that I really feel look into there. And when you look at human history over the last few thousand years, we're actually, believe it or not, in the best time to be alive, health-wise, war-wise, death-wise, standard of living-wise, than in a long, long time. Yeah. And even though there is all this craziness and division and chaos in the world, over half of that is media just making you fearful, where your body has been hijacked and your flight or fight system is just waiting for that negativity, because that's literally what they're putting out there. So a good portion of that fear is actually nonsensical fear, because we feel unsafe. Okay. Yeah. So we are in actually better times. It's unfortunate that we still have some crazy wars going on and division and all that. And then the other element is the word healing, like shadow work and healing. We have times in our life where we go through and have, we have shadow work. Saturn's returns is a part of that time in our life as well. And I got into this work, you asked me what it means to me. I started in 2001 when I woke up, and it was just ancient history information first. Went straight into the ETs, went straight into quantum physics, and then quantum physics started making me realize vibration, frequency, and healing. And as I started realizing that element, slowly but surely, I realized that I started on this path of looking for the root of religion to eventually find healing modalities to heal from my traumas as a child. Right. And the more I became conscious of that and aware of that, the deeper I went. And over 24 years of being on that path, I've given up multiple times, because I've oh my God, nothing's worked. I've not healed. I'm still back. I've gone back and forth, yo-yoing all over the place. But what has shifted me in order to make me take 2 steps forward, even if I take 1 step back, is realizing that healing is not a destination. Yeah. It's a journey, and we're spiraling through the vortex, if you will, and we're meeting different things at different levels of consciousness. And we're really not, and this is quite literal, okay? We're really not just healing ourselves in our past lives. No. We're healing galactic experiences on this earth, even from our interactions with different animals that have different ET connections to different planetary systems, has some sort of something that we're working out there, So the reason why this is important is because we're going to talk today not just about the individual, which we already started about, the individual shadow work, but there seems to be a collective shadow work that Earth is undertaking, and it comes out in our scriptures, comes out in archetypes and metaphors. So it's, to me, I've been going through a lot the last year. It's been probably, and I don't like to say the worst time ever, because I'm not trying to be a victim, but it's been freaking bad, And
Challenging,
yeah,
interesting,
there we
interesting.
go.
I use that. My mother used to say that when I was growing up. When the shit was falling down, she would go, "Well, that's interesting." So I
I
would
like
say,
that. Yeah.
"This is interesting." Yeah.
So it's been so challenging that I have no choice but to talk about it, because just having these conversations allows for me to get that level of healing as well for myself.
Yeah, and that's what I tell my clients. This is what's on your plate, right?
Yeah.
And we were taught to have our own agenda, like to go after everything, and that go go go, make your plan, have your goals, force it to happen, don't pay attention to the whatever's happening around you. And the motivation was always for something outside of ourselves, right? Some authority,
Hmm.
something that usually wasn't really aligned to our truth. So the idea of breaking that bond to that outer authority, and going against it is really full of the fear, right? And then when things fall apart, so I loved how you were saying, like, what we get is I'm going in a circle, or I'm stuck, or my clients will wake up and go, why did I care about that my whole life? Oh my God. And it's not like, yay, I get it now. They go through the death, the grief process, right? At first they're in denial. They're like, why did I waste my time? I can't believe I
Hmm.
did that, right? And so the power of it is acceptance, right? Staying in it and realizing, like you said, you're spiraling through it. And we have that goal-oriented mind. So it does feel like, but I didn't reach that goal and I didn't succeed at
Hmm.
that. And yet, if we're evolving faster than ever before, then if you were meant to start a business that was going to last 10 years, and now it's going to last 2 or 1, because you're done. Now you got to go to the next thing, or
Yeah.
you were in this and now you evolved to that. I also loved how you were saying that, we are healing through time and space. And there's no way
Hmm.
not to be. Like it's interesting how you came to frequency and vibration and healing. So I did the same thing, knew nothing about any of this. My business crashed in the end of the 80s. Everybody went bankrupt. Nobody paid me. And I thought I was the loser of the year. I had no spiritual or religious upbringing. So I went to look for the
Hmm.
weirdest shit I could find. And what happened was that I started to meditate, right? I started to read books where people were, you know, leaving their body, astral travel, and I was trying everything I could get my hands on, and everything did the same thing. It came back to frequency and vibration, and I started learning radionics, and I started learning homeopathy, and realizing everything goes down to the vibration. I even have books and books here of frequencies of whatever you want, from your optimal solar plexus vibration to your subtle body to penicillin. And started to treat people all over the world with this woman I was working with in France, and watch people heal of things I'd never heard of before. And it was battling that disbelief that this was real, that there was no separation between us and time and space, which then led to your other lives and all
Yeah.
parts of you. So it is really big, and we're not going to really grasp the level of our mission until
Yeah.
we get
And
through there.
it's such a genius creation, right? I mean, the what we're in right now is created from the most genius of creators ever, right? And the whole aspect of us being so individualized and feeling individual and being interact with that, but now being able to prove through quantum physics and through subatomic exploration of exploring things lower than the atom, that everything is made out of the same energy, and we're part of a collective field. And that is the introduction to the science of the Akasha,
Yeah.
right? And I think you were on the event with Flo when he was saying that the reason why we came on this earth, I think, and we have multidimensional abilities, and something he said along those lines, is for us to be able to tap into multiple levels of the Akasha that even other advanced beings aren't able to tap into.
Yeah.
Our body is able to do that, and that goes into our ability to heal the Akasha, with since we can access all those different levels of it.
Yeah, the way that I see it is that we connect through past life regression or shamanic journeying, or whatever way that it happens, for you to suddenly either release something or a fear. But what
Hmm.
I've seen happen to people in 34 years, I think, of doing hypnosis and then deeper shamanic journeying type of things, was that at first in the past, it was just like people would go, I don't believe in past lives, but I just experienced this past life and it just answered all my questions. I don't even know what to think, right? And it wasn't us talking to that life as much as just seeing it, feeling the pain, understanding what happened and how it related to the fears you have now. But over the years, it's progressed to where now we go in and we're talking to the other life, we're walking around with the other life. Both of you are being freed of that stuck point, right? Of that, I can't use my voice, but now I'm in this life trying to use my voice, right? But I can't use my voice. I got my head chopped off when I used my voice before, and all my family got killed when I used before, and I got burned at the stake when I said I was a healer, and all this other shit, right? And so those can get together now, but it's not just for us. We used to think like, oh, I'm healed now, thank you. I actually had one client's other life say, why should I help you? You don't care about me. You just want this for you. You're just going to take what I give you and you're just going to go away. And it was like an inner child part of her. And so it was like a whole healing of realizing I'm one with these other aspects. And a lot of them are stuck playing out the same story. And all of us have the opportunity to move to a new. So it's like freeing all the power in our soul, right? And then you've got the people who, I mean, the ability to co-create with those other lives.
Right.
With
You know, you said stuck and playing the same story. That's something that I've noticed as well in some people that get regressed, whereas the story becomes so real to them that they, whenever they think of that or have that memory, they relive that trauma.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, I would say that maybe the purpose of the regressions are really to go through it and to experience it and to feel it and then transcend it. But then there's also, depending on the person, you can get lost and stuck into that reality. And that's the opportunity of everything within this earthly experience of duality, is you can either become the master or you can become the victim. That's the free will choice. And earth experience, and we may have had this conversation before, or something I say often now, is like, what is the best way to remember the light on earth? Well, if like the setup was amnesia, only with amnesia, because if we didn't have amnesia, we would know the light. We would remember it fully. We have glimpses of it. Some of us have more, right? But most of us on earth don't. And so the best way to remember the light is to go through the darkness and then through amnesia. And if that was the setup of the game, now the conversation gets into, wait a second, so if we didn't have darkness, could the status quo just continue, and could we not wake up? Would we remain primitive, like Homo erectus, because we would just be living like animals because we didn't have the spark of the challenge to try to figure out some innovation to grow from it, right? And that was really, like, that right there was the reason why I even started Portal to Ascension. It was like 8 years of conspiracies and being a victim. 2001 and 2008, like they're gonna screw us over. There is no hope. We're done for. They control it all. Bloodlines. And then when I realized that, like, the darkness is, for lack of a better term, a necessary evil,
right?
Well, to wake up to this light, that's when I created Portal to Ascension. And I would say, like, that's the foundation of everything we do. Like, but we definitely expose hardcore, like, truths that are uncomfortable, but then the thing is, after you do that, having a sort of a platform or a support group in order to help you go into the solution and to reconcile that, rather than being stuck there. And a lot of people that do this work on their own, they might have gone through it and opened it up, and you could be stuck into that reality for a long time. And right now is the time for this evolution to go to a whole other level. And ultimately, we won't transcend into this new octave of existence until we've reconciled ourselves with the darkness.
Yeah. Well, and it's always an opportunity. So I had a daughter who died, and she came back after death, talked to us through different people, like a janitor in a hospital and all kinds of interesting things. And she said several times, everything's an opportunity. I can
You muted yourself, Nan.
Sorry about that. Oh, I know what I was wiping off an ash on my thing. So yeah, my daughter died and came back and told us everything is an opportunity. And she kept repeating that through several different people. And so I put it on the top of my website at the time. And I was going through the healing of, like, well, how the hell is this an opportunity? Screw you. And so everything died. I built a whole new spiritual structure of beliefs, and then that all died when she died, because it was like, oh, you're, all a bunch of liars and there's no God and all the rest of it, and went through the next thing, right? And the idea that everything's an opportunity if you just use it as a guide. So, oh, I lost my job. It's an opportunity. You were just liberated. That was another thing. Another guide told me, was every time you lose something, you're being liberated from something you don't need. And so if we just trusted that, which is hard to do, I know, but pretty soon I can promise you, living in what I call acceptance, the state of acceptance is where you take your power back. Not saying, oh, okay, whatever you want, but just saying, oh, this is what is. Now you can harmonize with new solutions, and you can transcend all the other stories, and you're in compassion and you're in forgiveness without any effort. But everything below that, even courage and stuff that are power states, requires some kind of force. And this is where, okay, well, what is? I don't know. I don't even know what I want to do. I just know I'm meant to go to Glastonbury and I don't know how I'm going to do it. You just put it there. You have to choose it and put it out there. Right. Yeah. And then you would just accept that there would be a reason and there must be a way. And the biggest issue I see with people is they're staring at, I can't, I don't know how. And then they have the trauma. So talk about trauma and how, when you have new trauma, what's your experience of it bringing up old rounds of trauma and being something, giving you a bigger opportunity to kind of take that bigger quantum leap?
Right. Well, those are triggers, right? Like when you have that thing coming back, those are triggers that take you back to an original thing that might have happened to you. For me, most of it is during childhood. I'm sure there's a lot of past life stuff that I'm not fully aware of, but a lot, like, even to be quite honest, like, even sometimes hanging out with my family, having a good time, triggers a childhood trauma. And it's not even a traumatic experience, but just the interaction and the conversation. Sometimes, like, since this is a vulnerable podcast, I'll talk about it. Like, sometimes, like, I'm talking to my parents, and all of a sudden I feel like a 5-year-old kid talking to them, trying to get their approval. Okay. And they're just chill. They've moved past all this stuff. Right. But I, like, have that innate ability, innate thing within me that needs the approval of them, even though I don't consciously want that. It just happens anyway. And then that triggers my anger that I can't just be a grown adult and just talk like a conversation and take direction and make my own decisions, but I need their input. And so that's been the hardest challenge for me, because there's a lot of other traumas with other people, and I can look at those from a more neutral perspective and be the observer of it and say how interesting that is. But I would say, I don't know if anyone else out there, but the deepest traumas come up with my family, with my parents. Yeah. And it's interesting because they're not even being rude like other people can. Someone could be rude to me or say something to me. They're just being supportive.
Yeah, because they're such an integral part of your soul blueprint, right? Because we come with this agreement, like, let me bring these traumas from these different lives because they're all in common and they'll force this to happen. And I know because I really believe that our soul knew we were coming now. I mean, nobody would choose to be alive right now unless you knew at a soul level this was going to happen. And so you came, and you're here on a fully funded mission, and you're here prepared at a deeper level to go through this. So I feel we all brought a lot of trauma from a lot of parts of ourselves, and they're typically embodied most heavily in the family because they had to start it off and give us that structure. But again, the thing is, when you get free, like you talked about mastery, and mastery is like walking in more than one dimension, right? You're going through the trauma, or your body's going through the pain, but you also know how to be in a higher state of consciousness, accepting what's happening and separate from the pain enough that you see the higher perspective.
Exactly. So. Yeah. And that goes into, I wanted to touch on that, what you said earlier about acceptance. And, when I started doing these events, and I would talk about, like, divine neutrality and acceptance and tolerance and also loving the darkness and being grateful for the darkness, there would be like I would get emails from people that were attending my events that would be upset about that. And um, one of the things that I would hear every now and then was that if you are neutral, or if you like accept some of these things that are happening in the world, what about the starving kids in Africa? That was like something that I heard often. And so I want to talk about that for right now, because as you said, like, and you kind of touched on, acceptance is not complacency. Divine neutrality is not being docile, right? Say that you get triggered by someone, and then all of a sudden you are speaking back to them in a triggered way. Okay. Um, One of your friends does something really terrible, throws you under the bus with someone, you get so triggered that you're just like, and then you speak immediately from that place of being triggered. Okay. So now you want to be heard, you want them to understand what they did wrong, but you're triggered. How do you think that person is going to respond? Probably triggered. Okay. And then it becomes this downward spiral of people just creating even more of like a place where it's harder to come out of, right? So what divine neutrality means, what acceptance means, is that you find a way, or you take time, or you're already at that level where you don't come from a reactory state. Okay. Divine neutrality is non-reactory, not meaning you're not like moving around or reacting to the world, but it means that you don't allow the external situations to affect the way you react to it. You are so within your own being, you're so within your own integrity, you know what your truth is, your morals are, your ethics are, that you make a decision based on that. That's what acceptance and divine neutrality does for you. And ultimately, I feel that is what our journey on this earth is to, how can we still be, okay, and this is like, because duality still exists after this dimension. Okay, there's still duality. It's almost like, how can we be in the oneness while we still exist in a dualistic world, right? That's kind of like the bottom line here, right? And part of that is non-reaction, acceptance, you know, and
Choosing.
being in
It's
that neutral.
really choice, right? It's aligning with your truth, that you give yourself space, that no matter what's going on outside of you, it is not the authority to what you're
Yes,
going to be thinking or choosing. And yeah, we all have habits and we have reactions. And like you said, you'll get triggered. Like if you look at the scale of consciousness, you'll see if you come at this state, these are low states of force. You can't really see a lot. Every single time you accept, it's absolutely ludicrous at first. I was talking to a client through it the other day, and they're like, it just seems so simple and easy. But it's like, and it's not. But the idea of like, well, I get frustrated because things haven't, manifested yet. I said, okay, accept you're frustrated. What? If you don't accept what's on your plate in front of you, you're, no matter how much you want to go around it, spirit's going to keep putting it on your plate. So, okay, I'm in frustration. Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well, what happens? It's like diffusing it. You're
yeah,
not in that resistance with it anymore. And then
right.
anybody triggering that doesn't have control of you. And the poor mind doesn't spin right down. And it's a process to learn for sure.
Definitely is. And it's like angry for being angry, you know. I'm upset because I'm frustrated. you know,
Yeah.
like
I want more
it,
compassion. I want more love. And the more you get mad at it, the further you go from those states. Right.
it comes down to us not being okay with feeling all the types of emotions, and
Yes.
feeling that some emotions aren't acceptable, and that goes to our parents, our upbringing, it goes to society, it goes to our teachers in school. They what they have put out, and then definitely ourselves as well, makes it that we feel that certain emotional states is what is acceptable, which goes into the people pleaser that we've had a conversation on, is that um, you want to, like, the people pleaser for myself is manifested in like, everything is fine always, don't worry about me, everything is light, even when I feel heavy, I don't speak from that heaviness place because I don't want to project it on someone else, but really it robs me from being my own authentic version of who I
Yeah,
really
and
am.
that's where, you master it, and then you can accept how you're feeling, and you don't have to puke it on someone else, right?
Yeah,
You start to learn your tools. Okay, whatever your path is, you learn your tools to say, oh, look, I forget what the book was that they made a movie out of about the gymnast, the Olympic gymnast that got hurt. And then he started having this like Zen master who was a garage mechanic. It was a huge book, teach him these little Zen things. And one day he went to visit his garage mechanic owner, and the whole garage was burning down. And the guy was standing in front of it. It was his whole world. That was all he had. Didn't have a lot anyway. And so this young guy comes up and he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And he just watched this guy, and the guy just went through every emotion in about a half a minute. So he went down on the ground, and he hit the ground, and he came back. It was just like,
wow.
Okay, let's go have a cup of coffee, find out what we're going to do next. So I started calling that touch bottom, like dive in a pool, dive in the emotions, go all the way to the bottom, touch it, come back up. You could do that for 10 lifetimes, 10 years, 10 months, 10 minutes. And the better you get at it, you have to accept how you feel, or you're going to be pushing it down. Yeah. So you go, but it doesn't mean it has to consume your life, you know?
Exactly. So I feel if the more of us, and I'm speaking to myself as I say this as well, like, and the last year has been this for me, is being open and honest about how you feel with people, And of course, there's probably times where you need to check in to see if it's the right moment to say something. But like last year, I would say is the first time I ever told somebody that I'm really not okay.
Yeah, 41 years old. Interesting? I know.
Yeah.
And to feel safe to do that, right? To feel it's a choice to do that. You're not doing it out of guilt. You're not doing it out of validating. You're not trying to prove anything. You're really saying, is this authentic, or am I making people feel sorry for me? Oh, I don't feel good today, or am I wearing it as a badge? Oh, I'm a victim. I'm a victim. You were talking about the victim thing earlier, and early in my spiritual days, I started to work with animal communicator and animal healers. And then I became a docent at the Albuquerque Zoo, and I would go down and I would walk alpacas, and then I'd go look at the white tigers before I would leave, and I loved them. But I still lived in the guilt that we are cruel. And I'm not saying I accept a lot of the behavior, but I still was carrying all that, it's so terrible that they're in the zoo, and it's so horrible how everyone treats. And there's plenty of that. But I was sitting like this, kind of in a reverie, looking at them and sending that energy to them of being a victim. And they just wham, went in my head. And it was like someone yelling. They would say, would you cut that out? You seeing us as a victim denies that we're sentient beings. I have a mission. I know exactly what I'm doing. I have to be here. And you think you sending me victim energy is helping? Don't send anyone victim energy ever. And I was changed. Whoop, I think we lost Neil. So the concept is like, don't see anyone as a victim. Doesn't mean that we treat people like shit, or we think it's okay, or we don't follow our own mission on, mothers who had their children killed by drunk drivers starting something. There's things that trigger your purpose to move forward. But the idea of seeing anyone as a victim means you're sending them weakened energy. And if we're all one, then we see someone else as a victim, then we can be a victim. And none of that's true. We're empowered to make a choice. And the more we free ourselves from this story, the better it is. So I saw Mayan. Hi, the book is The Peaceful Warrior. Exactly. And they made it into a little movie too, I think with Nick Nolte or something. But there were a lot of little concepts in there that early on were so empowering to that idea of what I just call acceptance now that we were talking about. And it sounds contradictory. I can promise you that in the beginning, I thought, I'm not accepting this. It's like somebody saying, oh, just accept what is. This is as good as it's going to get. Accept this and all that. No, thanks. Not interested. Hey, there he is. Hi.
There we go. Okay, you were talking about animal communicator.
Oh, yes. So I went through that the white tiger came in my head. And right, I was looking at them feeling all guilty about the white tigers being in the zoo and everything. And they said, cut it out. Don't see us as a victim. You're sending us weak energy. How do you think that helps us? We're sentient beings. We have a mission. We know exactly what we're doing. You need to respect us and find out how you can support us through our mission. Well, it's the same as all of us. We're all on a hero's journey, aren't we? We're all going through shit. We're this sacred serpent, that's, up and down, shed, up and down, forget it, let go. Is it helping you to carry your anger towards your ex? Or is it just poisoning everybody, right? I know both of us were huge. I was a huge people pleaser. I spent most of my life just trying to make sure everybody liked me and analyze what they said and what they thought. And the amount of energy that we use up trying to fit in, and we're conditioned for that. And the amount of energy you have for what you were just talking about, of being able to be in the present moment and just say, wow, I'm feeling this, but it's not anyone's fault. And I have that inner authority to choose, right, to be in it. So talk about that idea of the sacred masculine and feminine and the sacred serpent, and how does that help us with these kinds of old, really deep patterns, whether they're family or the habits of people pleasing, which usually come from family. Oh, by the way, Neil, Mayan knew the name of the book was The Peaceful Warrior. Oh, I think he's frozen. Are you frozen? Oh, we can see his beautiful face. Yeah, the love touch bottom of the pool. I use that so much. I'll share another story about that while we're waiting for Neil to come back. So I was, like all of us, right, just going through almost 40 years now of conscious learning and being led to shamans and mystery schools and everything, but all because of my own pain, right? All because I wanted a baby, and it took 8 years to get pregnant, and then she died, and then I adopted my twins, and and I had a divorce, and then my business failed, and I had huge successes and huge failures. And so all of these things challenge what we were taught. I should do one thing and be successful and everything stay perfect. And it's really not the way things work. But the hard part where we struggle and suffer is that idea, right? That mindset. So I was constantly I was doing all this spiritual work because I didn't want to be in pain anymore, emotional pain initially, and then grief. And so when I would read these books and see these different concepts, and I'd think and feel and meditate, and I started shamanic journeying, and I started talking to animal spirit guides, and I started talking to fairies, and I started talking to goddesses, and started talking to stones and trees especially. They were an early communicator for me. I said, who am I? What am I here for? Why am I here? And they would channel these messages through me. And when I read that, my thing was, the outcome could be the same, but if I suffer to get there, what was the point of the suffering? Because the suffering didn't help the outcome. And in fact, then I started to understand that the suffering I was going through, like if you have a negative thought, or if you're constantly consumed by it won't work, or I can't, or what if I don't, or I'm not going to take action until I know everything. We can't live that way, especially right now. We have to step in and be in movement of the flow. And so I was looking for that, and the idea of, okay, I'm a swimmer. Let me dive in, go to the bottom of the pool, touch it. Water is that representation of emotion. So I'm not going to avoid my emotions. I'm not going to hide from them. I'm not going to lock them away anymore. I'm going to dive in completely. Because do I really have a choice if something comes up in your face? You really don't. So it's the avoidance that causes the issue rather than the acceptance of how you're feeling. Of course, it has to be in the appropriate moment. And so my goal literally became like, how long does it take me to get through a pattern, And then I started to notice, and this is how you change a mindset or a pattern or interrupt. There's Neil.
Okay.
Bye.
My internet's been fine the whole time I've been here, except for today. And I'm on my phone and this. So if I get off this one, you bring me up on my phone. Okay?
Oh, okay, cool. Well, good. Well, we've been talking about the concept of touching bottom and coming back up. How fast can you process the emotions? So people
Right.
we were talking about that a little bit. So, but go ahead.
Okay. So something that I want to kind of ties into that was an analogy that I've been kind of tuning into and thinking is the way that this world has been working lately is that of a black hole and event horizon, right? So imagine that we have the event horizon, where all the light goes in, all the light, which is another metaphor and quite literal. And humanity, our experience on Earth is that we started lifetimes ago in this last 12,000 years, let's say, after the golden age, at the ends of these of this black hole, and we would be spinning around this black hole, and it would take lifetimes to experience all these different types of experiences. For quite some time, most people on Earth didn't even leave more than a couple of miles away from their home. You know, there was no transportation, there was no planes, there was no cars. The interaction with people was very low compared to now. It's exponential. The interactions on the phone, all the Instagram reels, all the text messages that you're getting all the time, all the spammers that are calling you, and all the different types of interactions that we're having. I don't even know if we can quantify the difference between humanity, most of humanity 2,000, 3,000 years ago living in villages, right? So so it would take lifetimes to experience a lot of stimuli. And now we are at what I would say right at the precipice, at the end of the event horizon. We've been spinning there, the gravity of the event horizon, right? Call it the wormhole to another dimension, because that's technically what it is, has been pulling us closer and closer and closer to it. And now we're at the event horizon at the end, and we're going around that thing like a million miles per hour and multiple times a day. And we're being, what I like to say, smacked on the face repeatedly with the lessons to transcend. Are you going to learn this lesson now? Are you going to grow from this? Are you going to grow from this? And the reason for that, in my opinion, is we cannot take our baggage with us to the next dimension.
No.
And so the reason why we have all these stimuli, these are all opportunities for us to address things that get triggered from that. And the only way for us to be able to move through that is to really reflect at it. And something I jokingly say is like, Earth is kind of like the definition of insanity, doing things over and over and over again, expecting different results. That's
Yeah.
like happening all the time.
Why isn't
Right?
this working? Why isn't it staying the same? Nothing
Exactly.
stays the same. But I did all the work and now it was perfect, but then it changed. Nothing stays the same. I know, but yeah.
Yeah. So we're now at, so if we look at all this, even all these distractions, all these things are different opportunities to become self-aware. And that's where it really starts, is the self-awareness. Like, how do you start this process? Is to be self-aware. I would say, like, to very simplify it, are you projecting? Where is it coming from you? Are you projecting something onto someone else? And are you utilizing tools around you to distract you from feeling what you really feel? Right. And that's like the basic level of us just getting to a place of embodiment, so that we allow ourselves to express things, and that we stop projecting our own wounds, our own insecurities on that's how other people would be. And this, I'm coming from a lot of experience on this one, because I had so many different insecurities growing up and social anxiety, and I wouldn't interact or even communicate with certain people because I would project on them that they would be the same way that I was. So, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But so it's like
Oh, switch to your phone,
a,
Albert.
a, a learning process to really realize that. So that was my rant on that one.
Yeah. Well, and so the idea that, we go through these things and then we start to understand that there's no right or wrong, and that we didn't may have any failures, and that everything was designed to get us over these patterns and complete all these bonds, soul contracts, whatever you want to call them, so we could get to this event horizon. I like that, because I'm very into the Mayan pyramid, how it's like the waves of consciousness is each level, and the top is unity. And we arrived here. We're at unity consciousness, but it wasn't built before. We couldn't have gotten here before because it wasn't ready for us. Kind of like the event horizon. And so all these opportunities to keep getting triggered or dating the same guy or whatever the thing is let's, desensitize to this stuff. Let's stop making it mean what it doesn't mean. Let's stop making it be the rules of our life that define who we are, because we don't know who we're going to become. We've never been that. And that's the big thing, is we were taught, don't move forward till you know everything, right? And then you carry your guilt of not being perfect. So how is divine masculine and feminine going to help us? Balancing those two, because we've never really seen a balanced sacred masculine or feminine.
Yeah. let me just mute this other one here real quick. Hold on. So, I'm going to segue into that in a second, but something I want to like just touch on really quick is because we spoke a lot about the individual traumas, triggers, shadow work, and so I'm at a point now where I'm realizing and that we have a collective shadow work that we're working on as well, and I think it might work something like this, like our Earth experience. We all are individuals on this earth, and we're having these specific experiences that we're transcending. We're working it out through each other, and then there's like a solar systematic or even a galactic experience where this shadow work, if you want to change the term, is a collective set of belief systems of a group of souls that have all adopted that, right? And for example, this is an illusionary world. This is a virtual reality game, very organic, very beautiful one. And but things are standardized based on a collective belief systems around it, a collective acceptance of it. If we all collectively accepted that a table looked like a giraffe tomorrow, it's quite
Exactly.
possible it could change. If everybody on Earth just
Absolutely.
decided to do that right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a collective soul group, but Earth experience here, we have come from, you might feel you're connected to Arcturus, the Pleiadians, but ultimately Earth has been a gift to souls that have had many different incarnations. Specific incarnations and the theme of that incarnation might be more relevant to your experience now, but you could have had more lives in Pleiades than you could have had in Arcturus, even though you feel connection to Arcturus. And with that, there's been a lot of, let's say, drama and experiences and challenges and even wars throughout our galaxy. And now all these souls that have been from all these different galaxies and dimensions and other galaxies, but mainly a lot within our galaxy, are here on Earth working it out and living in harmony, attempting to live in harmony with all these beings that we've had many different experiences with, a lot of them very challenging, you know? And so I feel part of Earth experience and even connect to that event horizon is us to work out these collective traumas that have happened within the galaxy
Yeah.
so that we can heal not only ourselves, but and permeate that frequency of harmony throughout the galaxy, because the places that we permeate it through happen to be us in those lives, living those
Yes,
incarnations there.
exactly. And that's why we create this grid of light, so to speak, right? Because it's us connected to those other wisdoms that we've had within our soul. And then you have the wisdom, maybe you were a wisdom teacher or priestess or something. You can connect to your mentors. And we're starting to be that we are one at a bigger level, but we're not one of the followers. We're ascended masters remembering who we really are. And
Right.
we've been living as slaves with the mentality that everybody else tells us what to do, what we're worth, when we go to work, and everything else. And we know that the sacred sites, the stone circles, the pyramids, and all this, these are energy generators, these are interdimensional time portals, because we've known throughout time at some level of us already knows that we can connect, that we need to now get back in that connection to those other divine wisdoms that we have. And then we can create something that we couldn't imagine ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And just to touch on the connection to the serpent energy, because we were also speaking about that, is that it seems that there was definitely collective traumas on Earth, like the flood that happened. That was a collective trauma in all of our scriptures. Then there's like galactic wars, the DNA wars, genetic manipulation, the whole human experience from not only from my regressions, meditation, but also from research, seems to be intrinsically connected with genetics from the beginning. Like our four ancestors were literally geneticists, and they were going around to all over the galaxy utilizing genetics of other beings and integrating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that created a lot of polarity and division within different races, that some of them actually didn't end up being a pleasant experience. And the reptilian energy is connected to that disagreement with the way genetics were used based on the human template and the reptilians. And then there was a collective reptilian serpent energy trauma that occurred on the planet, and it started getting eventually put into all of our texts. And the story of the snake in the Bible, for example, which is just one of many Western stories of dragons and snakes that are demonized,
Yeah.
are representations of a type of darkness that came onto the planet, and also is a demonization of some things that were actually positive. It's been so distorted, but this collective trauma was only a fraction from my own regressions of the experience of these beings. Okay, so let's just specifically about reptilians here. um, Only around 5% of them are like actually polarized as negative, right? And only a small percentage of those beings actually had an effect and interfered with Earth, because many of the beings that are higher dimensional beings or benevolent beings, they have a non-interference policy.
Yes.
They
Yes.
see the bigger picture. They see that darkness is needed for the light. They see the dance and the balance, and they love to watch it many times, and they're hopeful that we're going to transcend things. And because of that, they don't interfere or interact with our free will. And so when we get um, lower astral entities interacting with us, creating shadow-like experiences, we ended up putting in our text that this is what all beings are, you know. And so I just wanted to mention that in regards to the reptilian thing, is that a lot of people, because I'm doing a reptilian series starting next week, and I put a post out there just to ask people what they thought of it, and still a lot of blanket statements over this. But these beings, these, what are the reptilians or lower astral entities, have been have a role to play where they are allowing us to have the shadow work, and without them, maybe we wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Yeah, well, and there's everything has a purpose, right? And how we interact with it, what we think it means, how long we take, like we just talked about, how long you spend processing a particular thought, fear, truth, because the whole truth isn't ever revealed. You can only see the next truth after this truth that you're in. Like you process it and then you go, oh, then you can go to the next one. So we have, on the scale of consciousness, the second lowest state is guilt, and the emotional state of guilt is blame. And this is the second biggest, the level of addiction or desire, craving, and disappointment is consuming the planet. But this idea, if you see yourself or anyone else blaming anybody, you blame yourself, you're in that state. Part of you is, you blame someone else, you say they're bad, I'm good. Now, that doesn't mean there's certain things that you want to choose, but you look at it as choosing. So if you said like it was only a certain percentage of the race, that's true for everything, right? There's just that percent that has one. It says if good and bad, let's just take really generic, right? It's like a thermostat, 0 and 100, and you just turn it. You can go all the way down here, you can go all the way up there, and you can go anywhere in the middle. It's two sides of the same thing. So you start blaming it, you're creating it, but there's no way for you to create anything with the other side not existing.
Right.
You create happiness, there's sadness. And I learned after the death of my daughter that the deeper you love, the deeper you grieve, and the harder it feels. But it means that you've expanded your ability to stretch into higher and lower emotions, and you can experience the other side deeper. So
if you look at like a lot of the stories behind the negative polarized beings, astral beings, it seems to be kind of like the same story as humans on Earth that become very, like you'd say, bad or evil, is that a lack of connection, feeling disconnected from source, and a lack of love and feeling love, and feeling so separate from the original source. And like, even not to go into all those deep stories, that's a whole other conversation, but the stories of specific ET races and how they even became what they became, and how some of them became what we would call as evil or bad, and they millennia ago had experiences where they were so wounded that now they're at a point where they don't even realize the original wound that occurred for them. They're just in that energy.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of also transcending the judgment over what we call evil, and realizing that what originally occurred for that person to get to that place why, and withholding. I feel like everybody on earth just wants love and to be loved and to
Yeah.
feel connection. And whenever we don't have those elements in ourselves, that is when we go to the darkness and the depths of experiences that could end up being something that we would be, experiencing negatively.
Yeah. And we can't change other people. We can change our own reality. And even if we're living a collective reality, I don't experience it the same way you do. Every single
Hmm.
person has a different reality, which is the truth. We create our reality. So we have a collective thing. And if you're consumed, if you get really depressed or drawn into the story of, this happened to someone, or this natural disaster happened, or this war is going on, it's not that
Yeah.
if you're called to do something in those areas and it's part of your purpose, listen to your heart. But to be consumed by all of that and let it drag you down to low states of consciousness, that's what you're giving back. You're feeding that. You're doing exactly the world. You are feeding more of that energy. So it's not easy, but the more that you keep yourself over here and out of blame, because it doesn't work. You can just say, I can make a choice, and that's not okay. And there's no way I'm being around those people. And, luckily my partner knows. We go to a restaurant and I'm an energy girl. We'll sit down, we'll get water or something. And I'll go, I can't stay here. And he doesn't even ask me why. He's just like, okay.
Hmm.
You have to start to, Esther Hicks, Abraham Hicks.
Yeah.
So, Chris knew them pretty well and went to several of their things. And we used to be in a study group with her daughter. And they would say that Jerry would get up and leave the room if there was any negative energy, but he wouldn't say anything. He wouldn't say, could we change the subject? Or would you stop talking about that? Or I don't like that. Or I don't allow negativity in my life, or anything. He would just stand up and leave. And he wouldn't do it angrily, and he wouldn't do it in a dramatic way. He wasn't trying to make people look at him. He would just stand up and leave because his energy was too important to him. He put it above everything. And it sounds weird and impolite in our society, our people-pleasing society. However, really, when you think about it, preserving your energy and shedding what is triggering you there, right, it gives you that opportunity to get away and see, that's not me. That's something I learned. It's something I have a reaction to. Now you're starting to get to know yourself.
That's great advice, because that's where I'm working on that too myself, is doing what's good for me, and in a way where I already know I'm a good person. And even if I do something that is good for me, I know, like, just inherently I'm not going to be hurting someone. Actually, if anything, I would be benefiting the other person and the
Absolutely.
experience,
You are.
and keeping the experience authentic with that person, you know. And this is a good segue into duality and sacred polarity. We want to speak about that too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So something that has come to me is, as we share, duality exists into other realities, and on Earth, duality has become like, hot, cold, and even become like good and evil, good and bad has become duality. And ultimately, like, darkness and light, there's a sacred dance of darkness and light in the cosmos, in all the physical universal experiences, which, and this is, maybe you'll know more about this because you communicate more coherently with these beings. But anything below 13 dimensions, it still is a physical universal experience that might be pure energy, might be oversoul energy, but this still is our stars and planets, and this darkness in space, and this lights and stars and suns. That in itself is duality. And what do you have there? You have darkness and you have light, right? You have the sacred dance. After the 13th, the Christ conscious portal, basically vortex, maybe it's a different experience. I don't even pretend to know what's next. And but then as you get lower and lower in density, lower in dimensional experience, from that 12, 11, all the way down, the density gets a little heavier. And when we get down to this dimension, darkness and light became good and evil. Okay. We um, created that from these beautiful sacred energies that are so higher dimensional and go throughout all dimensions, that literally have no negative or positive polarity to them. They just exist as these polar opposites. For example, in the universe, you have a black hole. Is a black hole represents the darkness. It sucks in the light into nothingness. Okay, that's not evil. That's just is. It's darkness, right? lower and lower dimensional experience, free will reality, all these different dramas taking place, the ability to project our own intention on our free will experience, boom, darkness, good, evil, right?
Yeah.
And as we're going up into this level, this connects to sacred polarity and divine masculine and feminine, because you even have those energies playing in darkness and light, and it's might be interchangeable in some ways. But when you have like the black hole is a representation of the feminine energy, because it's
Yeah.
literally an orifice that
Yeah.
sucks in the sperm of the light.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have the white hole, and that's why father son is father son, because it's spewing out sperm light,
Yeah.
photons, and so you have this polarity that transcends gender. Is a black hole a woman? Is the son a man? It's this sacred polarity that again lowered and lowered in dimensional experience until it became physically manifest in us
Yeah.
as default women that are default already set to already be able to tap into the feminine energy but have both, right?
Yeah.
And default men that their mentality and mind is set to go into the masculine energy, but they also have both. And part of what we're doing on earth is coming up with the perfect balance of both of them. And then places like Egypt, again, another podcast to explain why Egypt was like this. They were all about the brain chemistry and the right and left hemisphere
Yeah.
and how they work together. So the sacred polarity of the feminine and the masculine energy, they have certain personality traits, right? And I would say, like, so getting into this is kind of like tantra work now, relationship work. But when it comes to this lower dimension, the masculine energy, for example, is the doing energy, getting done, creating, like building structures, and the feminine energy is very nourishing. Okay. In this day and age, we've happened to demonize certain parts of those things, like I don't want to be nourishing, and almost like a, a non-acceptance of those ways because we feel that they aren't productive enough to be a member of society and be valued because we don't give value to them, right? And there's many other traits, but since I'm a man and I've like worked on the masculine ones, I would say that some of the masculine traits would be the mountain, and I'll tell you
Mhm.
what this is in a second. um, the sacred container and the mountain, two of those.
Mm.
And so the masculine energy is that when you see, and again, this transcends gender, but it embodies in all of humanity, that when certain things happen in the world, certain anxieties, pressures, or arguments, or something with your own spouse, for example, and do you run away and hide, or are you the mountain where you stand in your own truth, that you are able to receive the criticism, the energy, and then and come from a place of non-reaction and speak? Well, now let's talk about a male and female dynamic. If you are a person that aren't in your truth as a man because you've been cheating on that person, or you're not telling the truth and lying, it's very hard to be the mountain. So being the mountain called you to be in your integrity,
Yeah.
and to alignment. The sacred container. Okay, now we're talking about the Shiva Shakti dance. The Shakti, which is the feminine energy, is the wild force of nature, right? And the coming together of the masculine and feminine as partners and energies, just embodying those energies, is the man being the sacred. This world isn't really safe all the time. We can live in a safe world, but when it comes to, especially for a lot of women, they not all women, I gotta put that disclaimer out there, but for a lot of women, that they don't feel safe in certain areas, walking down streets at a certain time, and all these different things. And so coming together with a partner that you feel protected with, and the masculine energy is the sacred container for the Shakti to run wild. Okay.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's an
Yes.
interesting one, because I'm talking about male and female dynamics. Again, if you're whatever sexual orientation you are, in one person embodying the masculine, one person embodying the
Yeah.
feminine energy, and having that come together of the sacred container, the Shakti gets to be her full nature force in creativity, because that's the feminine energy, is the creativity energy, while the masculine energy is the protective force of the sacred container. Now, that's also very interesting because that's a paradox of nature manifesting in this physical reality. It's wildness and structure
Yes.
coexisting at once. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So yeah, that's just a little bit I want to share about
I
sacred
love that
polarity.
though. It's exactly like I came from a different perspective, but exactly the same. And especially what's really brought a lot of it into physicality right now is the dragon year. As
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking about, the dragon year is yang energy, it's masculine energy, but it's pure sacred fat masculine energy. And it's big, but it's all about new growth and creativity. And so to me, the dragon keeps coming and saying, I'm going to build whatever you want, but you got to bring your creative new stuff and we'll grow it. And I'll build the space you need energetically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. I'm here to build that. Like you were talking about, that sacred masculine, protecting and building for us to come in and be the creator, to let that sacred feminine and of course whatever. And that's the blend, that's the kundalini, that's the life force, that's the caduceus, that balance of the two. If they were really balanced coming out of our Janisa crystal, our 8 original cells, and they really went through each chakra like that, balanced even flow of both, that's what we're reaching towards. If we had the sacred masculine and feminine crossing in every one of our chakras and then pouring into our third eye, then that opens those wings, just like the caduceus had, to the other dimensions. So there's so much power in us balancing those two, physically, emotionally, sexually, relationally, but it's also going to open a whole new world that, of awareness. Yeah. And it's a lot of it is accepting that we are safe with our own power.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There's been, as you would probably agree, and this something says a lot. A lot of people in spiritual community say this: is our sexual energy is the most important and vital energy, and it's a connection. Even that Kundalini and the Caduceus that you just explained connects to that energy field. That so there is, if you were an aware being or entity or a group of elite, the best way to control society is to demonize, weaponize, and distort the sexual energy, right? And not to go into that, that's a long conversation, but it's definitely been happening. Let's just say like it's been happening a lot, and we can tell just by even on Disney, they over sexualize children.
My gosh, the Notre Dame movie was creepy.
Right. So it's there. There's a certain effort to control that and distort that energy. And because there's been such a patriarchal society for so long, there's also been again, it's not for everyone, but there's been an asserted effort and a dislike or distrust in the masculine energy that has been corroding the masculine energy in the world that's defaulted in men. And and not only that, like a lot of women are really frustrated and upset at that, rightfully so. And then a lot of men are self-hating men because they're upset at what the man has done as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's a hot mess, but that's what the breakdown is. It's a breakdown. It's a metamorphosis. Right. Yeah. We're turning into goo. We have to let go of all these paradigms. I mean, oh my gosh, my twins are girls and they're 27 and they have very interesting perspectives, on the world. And they have this very, I don't even know what to call it. It's such a different perspective, all these kind of sexual things and gender things and these ideas of and we watch old movies or old shows. Tonight we watched an old Brian De Palma movie. I don't know if you know him, but from the 70s, he did these thriller movies, and there was always a lot of naked boobs because it was the 70s, so that was normal. And then the murder and the the kind of like mystery. And so the first 3 minutes, we're all there's 3 of them and me and Chris, and it's just naked bouncing boobies everywhere on the screen. And we're all like, oh, okay. I said, oh, I didn't remember this. I didn't remember this as part of the movie. And how that was normal then, right? It wasn't, whereas if you made that movie now, all of his movies were about voyeurism and they really go over the limit to what we accept now. So just seeing movies and then trying to judge people by what somebody was doing in a different time, even just 20 years ago or 40 years ago, you can't do it. You weren't in that mindset. That's how fast we've evolved. But we get to create this new mindset. And the thing about sexual energy is that it's one of the most powerful energies that we have access to. But all of our shame and our secrets and vows and all that shit is in the sacral. And that's where our Janissa crystal is. That's where our blueprint is. And so it's all packed in there. And it's the womb, whether you're a man or a woman. It's the creative center. And so it's all to keep us from using 50 or 60% of that sexual energy for other kinds of creativity, creating our own reality, creating literally whatever kind of earth we want. But like you said, it's been hijacked and demonized and twisted.
Yeah, the shame around it is just insane. I'm still working through all the shame because my childhood traumas are all like sexually connected, right? And that's the whole thing with victim or master. You had those traumas, and now it's a lifelong journey to become the master of what happened to you, and then hopefully help humanity heal. And we spoke on the phone the other day about how back in the day, for me at least, there was Return of the Divine Feminine was such a huge word. And even when I like 2001, 2010, like 10 years of my awakening, I was like all about like down with the patriarchy, which I still am kind of on one level, but I was more about like Return of the Divine Feminine, the feminine energy, so much so that I was becoming even more feminine.
Yeah.
Not sitting in my own, because I was like just talking about it so much. And then I realized one day after I did a Divine Feminine conference that, hey, I wonder what's up with the masculine. Like, because if the sacred feminine is becoming the sacred feminine, then is the masculine staying the masculine and the feminine taking over? And I used to think that the matriarchy would take over and it would become a predominantly feminine based energy. And that shifted to realizing like that what's going to occur is that the masculine needs to basically step up and become the sacred masculine. But the only way we can do that is if we do it together without judgment. And the feminine energy is there to call the man back into the heart. Okay, the masculine energy back into the heart, because the masculine energy is cut off the heart from, and honestly, from lots of wars and bloodshed and craziness that's happened on the planet. We like it's another collective trauma that we've taken off. And that feminine energy, the nourishing energy, is that safety, that safe zone of like, you are seen, I love you, you are nourished. It's that motherly energy of being like being taken care of, like everything is okay, and calling the man back into the heart. So it's like without each other on this thing, we can't just do it alone. You can't just become the divine feminine alone in a world where the masculine is wounded. How can you put your divine feminine all the time if the masculine keeps projecting the same thing on you?
Yeah. Well, and you can't have one thing out of balance. They're both out of balance. The masculine and the feminine. That's why I said we've never experienced sacred masculine and feminine in any sustained way or role playing on the planet in our lifetime or in recent history, because it's not been possible. And now we're to a point where this is peeling away and that's peeling away. And you did, 10 years of sacred feminine and all that. And immersing in that was really good because you were counterbalancing. But one of the reasons we need that extra focus on certain areas that have been weakened, it isn't that power is so weak and this power is overblown, right? The masculine. So they're both out of balance, and it has to go like this to come back in balance. So focusing more on the divine feminine for most people is important because we've forgotten our intuition. We don't feel safe being free, expressing ourselves and all the rest of that. And it's about receiving. Like you said, that feminine energy is about receiving. And I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of good receivers because it hasn't been safe, and so we're learning to receive, and we're learning to not blame each other. And that's the hard part on the way back to this. But that's where the sacred serpent comes in. I think the teachings of all of the sacred cultures got flipped, like you said in the Bible, where they turned knowledge and the kundalini and the sacred feminine into the demon, and then started demonizing all of that to weaken it, to keep you from your power. right? To keep you from your direct access to your power. And the sacred serpent has a lot of lessons, and the biggest one is shed. So if we're going through this together and we both see each other and we go, the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, we're so out of balance. And we just keep going up and down and we shed. We don't have to think the old way. The shedding can go deeper and deeper. We can use that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. And peeling back the layers, it's just peeling back the layers. And as you shared the other day with me, it's not that we're not trying to be something, we're just uncovering and shedding so that we can truly be what's already underneath us, what we already are.
Yeah, perfectly formed. So,
Hmm.
anything else you want to share about those
I
topics?
feel I feel very complete actually. I think this
Yeah.
was a great conversation. We touched on everything here. And I would say like cuz I'd like to really go into the tools and the practices. Something that I'm doing now is just like spending 20 minutes a day, and I'm trying to move up to an hour of just sitting without any distractions, without touching my phone, without even any music, and just feeling how I feel, including sometimes hardcore anxiety or like I want to go and do something, I want to accomplish something, I got to do this, and realizing and being aware of it without the judgment of the fact that my mind and conscious wants to do it. And the more I'm able to sit with my own feelings, the more I'm able to authentically feel throughout the world. So that's just one tool that I want to leave people with.
Well, and being with what is what we don't do. The mind is 80% repetitive thoughts. We're constantly, thinking about 10 things while we're doing this and worried about that. And you're not in the present moment if you're in the future or the past, right? You're thinking about the past. And all the powers in the present moment. All the solutions are in the present moment. All the way to get through it. So it's the old concept, but we have to access it in a new way. And
Yeah.
so that coming back and saying that, you said that, hi Brittany. Brittany's in my mastermind, and this is something I'm teaching them, is to just sit with it. I said, you have to just sit with it, just sit with it, just sit. But it's so uncomfortable. I'm tired of it. And I want it over. And it's just, I'm so sick of it. And one lady sat for 5 months in a lot of her stuff. And she just had a breakthrough. But she had a breakthrough for ancestors, for lineages, for her whole life. Like it went to the core. And she's just, boom, she just sent a text and was like, oh my God, I went to the beach with a friend and I'm doing all this fun stuff. She hasn't left just doing the things that make her feel better and being in her house. And
Yeah.
that power of listening, that power of being, the power of not having an agenda. We don't listen enough. I want this, I want that, I want this. Tell me. Well, shut up and listen, right?
Mhm.
So wonderful. Thank you. I don't know how to say your name, Alcione. Thank you so much. Well, so you can find Neil at portal2ascension.org, and tell us about some of the other things you have coming up before we go.
Yes, we have a lot of cool things coming up. First of all, my new website has been launched, so go and check it out there. There's like a cool portal on the website, and you can go ahead and sign up, and you get hundreds of hours of free content, and it's all upgraded. So please go enjoy it. Go to register for replays and see there's like hundreds of events there, many of them for free. So go play around, add some things, see some cool stuff, and then this year we have two major live productions, and one's at the end of the year, which is December, which is the Galactic Origins Cruise, galacticoriginscruise.com. You can check it out. And then Nan's going to be coming to our conference, Portal to Ascension Glastonbury. That's going to be in September. So love for you guys to come to Glastonbury. If you can't attend live, please do try to come live. It's going to be so epic, because our conference in Glastonbury is, what I love to say is, it's a retreat, it's a grid working event, it's an activation in the disguise of a conference. And that's not even saying it lightly, that's literally what it is, because all the things around it, the experiences that we have, and the fact that we're on the heart chakra of the world doing some actual energy work while we're listening to these presenters. You can check that out at ascensionglastonbury.com. If you can't attend live, then you can also check it out on virtually as well. You can sign up for the live stream. So that's just a couple things coming this year, and then we're just always growing and evolving. We got so many cool things in store.
Yeah. So make sure you get on there, because Neil does a lot of content, and there might be some topics you don't like, and there might be some topics that are just what you're looking for. That's the beauty of what you're doing, is opening all these possibilities for everyone. So Well, good. Thank you, everybody, for being so interactive and sharing. I really enjoyed all of you. And if you have anything else you need, please feel free to shoot us over an email, ASST@nanakasha.com. Join Neil on his website, join my website, nanakasha.com, and come to Glastonbury. I can tell you that it's 22:22 right now on my computer. How cool is that?
Oh, nice.
Time.
11:22 here. Perfect.
So this is an area that, and I'm into the ancient sites and the power spots and the vortexes, and this place has so many dimensions meeting together with so many possibilities, so many portals to different realities. You could come in on one stream and find 5 new timelines that you get activated on, and just the event alone being where you're going to be is just pure magic. Plus, Neil, you're offering some in situ. You're not just sitting in a conference room, but you're having some of the tours that go out to the sacred sites, and so it's really going to be good. Okay, well, thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Love you so much. Thank you, everybody. Let's go ahead and say that we're ready now to take this information, and with great thanks, it's been given into the Akasha, so it is available for all of those that are ready, and when they are ready, to tune into these words of freedom, these words of understanding, these words of healing that can now multiply through our hearts out into the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching at any time that you come. And thank you for being a light in the world, because we know if you're listening to us, you're out there as a rebel on the cusp, asking the right questions. And we know that it's not easy, but I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, because like Neil said, we have to do our own work, and it's really the only work we can do, yet we're in this together. Right.
Yeah.
So
thank you, everybody.
Night.